This is the Metal Queens podcast. I'm Steve Richards. Temtris is a band from Australia. They've been together for about 22 years, and I'm joined by Jen from Temtris. Hey, Jen.
How you doing? Thanks so much for taking some time to get up early and speak to me
Oh,
far, far away in Australia.
yeah, it's just after 7 here in the U.S. and 9 o'clock in the evening as we're recording this, and or it was actually close to
Yeah,
10, right?
10, 10.
10.
Yeah, just clicked over 10 o'clock. So
Yeah,
that's all
quite
right. I'm a night person, so it's okay.
quite the time difference. But so, Jen, tell me about Temptress. 22 years now together. How did you
Yeah.
guys get together?
Look, Anthony Fox is my guitarist and also my partner. We met in high school many, many years ago. He needed a singer for his band, which was doing metal cover songs back then, which was pretty popular when we were growing up. Skid Row, Gunners, all those bands were pretty big, Metallica, Iron Maiden. So I auditioned for Fox's band and he got me to sing and we kicked off just doing covers. I was actually 14 then and started doing shows in pubs at 14 years old. So that was pretty cool. And yeah, ever since then, we've pretty much just continued our musical career. And at first we were just mates doing music, what we love. And then we ended up being partners because it was just, we had that connection where we both had the same goal to release music. Before Temptress, we actually had a band called Labyrinth and we released an EP. That was a 4-track EP we released. And that was more of a heavy hard rock sort of band, had a little bit of metal elements in it, but it wasn't as heavy as Temptress. And then in about 1998, we decided to form Temtris and we actually wanted to do something metal. And back then we had the death vocals, backing vocals with my clean singing. And that was our first sound. And there weren't many bands doing that sound when we first started doing that. And there actually wasn't really any female fronted bands, metal bands in Australia back then. And it was just becoming a thing overseas with Evanescence and bands like that kicking off with that sort of sound as well. So yeah, we sort of kicked off Temptress and been going ever since. So it's just something we do because it's in our blood and we love it. And we occasionally think this is crazy, this many albums, and it's cost us, so much money to do it, but it's what we love. So we just keep going because life would be weird not doing music, I think, and bringing albums to you guys.
We'll talk about new music coming up and touring too, but how is the metal scene in Australia now, and specifically for female fronted bands?
Look, the metal scene has definitely changed here, and like most places I've heard overseas as well, COVID definitely did a bashing to the metal scene and the music scene in general. But when you get the big shows, we just had Knot Fest here recently. That was absolutely packed
Mm.
out. We played with Ripper Owens a couple of weeks ago. That was another packed out show. We've had for female fronted, we had Unleash the Archers come here, and they actually, people loved seeing them, and they filled venues, and we supported them in Canberra, and it was an amazing show. So the female fronted scene here is going quite strong, and people are quite keen to look into that genre here now, and are much more supportive of it than when it first started. Australia is a very thrash-driven scene. We all love our thrash here, but a lot of the girls now are getting into that death vocal style here as well and bringing that to the metal scene here in Australia. So the females in the bands are definitely growing compared to how it used to be when I first started. It used to be, occasionally I'll still play a festival and I'll be the only girl at the
Mm.
festival, but that is changing now. There are more and more females in the scene and that are definitely making an impact here, which is really cool.
Jen, how did you get started in music? Was it in your family, and specifically getting into death metal too?
Look, my family always listened to music at home. My mum and my
Mm.
dad always played records. My dad was a, Sabbath, AC/DC fan, things like that. So there were always records at home, but he liked the softer stuff as well. And my mum, she just loved people with great voices. She was a huge Annie Lennox fan and Cyndi
Mm.
Lauper and people like that way back when. So there was always music in my house. I actually wanted to learn guitar. So at 12, I got bought a guitar and I learned to play that basic, just basic guitar stuff. And then I realized I could actually sing. and So I decided at 14 to get some singing lessons, and my singing teacher wanted me to do some opera. And I was like, no, I want to sing like, some metal like Skid Row and Iron Maiden and things like that. So I literally just got entwined into that scene and wanting to sing like, those male vocalists with that big voice, big power metal voice. And from there, I've grown into all sorts of music, and I love right into my recently I went and watched Death came and toured here in Australia. Went up and saw them. They're one of my favourite bands. So I love bands like Death and Carcass and things as well. So I have this broad spectrum of music that I listen to, but I'm a metal girl at heart for sure.
Do you prefer festivals, performing at festivals, or the intimacy of a club gig?
Oh, that's, you know what? Both are amazing. Last year we played a festival at a big festival at Belgium, Ragnarok, and that was amazing on the, in back of a big stage outside. And that is an amazing feeling doing that sort of shows. And we've played big shows with bands that have had, the 700-800 people, sold out crowd, which is fantastic too. But the intimate shows are another thing as well, where you just get up close and get in people's faces and meet them. And that's both sides have its benefits, and I love doing both. And I think that's the fun thing about going when we go on tour, especially overseas. We'll do a couple of festivals again this time, but we'll also do those small club shows where you get to meet people. And people often say to me, "Oh, do you do meet and greets?" And I'm like, just come to the bar and have a drink with me and have a vodka with you, and we'll do a meet and greet old school.
You've opened for Accept, Girl School, Michael Sweet from Striper. Any favorite of those?
Look, Girl School, the girls from Girl School were amazing. They were just so cool and down to earth. The Accept guys were awesome. I still remember that was our first big support show, and they literally sat with us after the show out the back and had a drink with us and asked us if we were going to come on the rest of the tour with them around Australia, but sadly we weren't. So they were really nice guys. Michael Sweet was amazing. He did an acoustic show, and we did an acoustic show of our own just to support him. And that was just, he was so lovely. He sat with us before the show and chatted with us and was such a gentleman and such a nice guy. But I must say, we've supported Metal Church a few times, and those blokes are legends. Step from Metal Church is just awesome, and Mark, the singer. And, yeah, those guys always, happy to play with them because they're just such down-to-earth fellas. And, yeah, it's when you play with those big bands that have this massive following and they just treat you like your own, like them, it's just, really cool. Makes everything worthwhile.
What's the story behind the band's name, Temtris?
Wow. We wanted a female-fronted sounding name, and the Temtris was back then, the boys looked into it when they were looking for, something a bit dark and evilly. She was actually meant to be a bit of an angel that was could seduce people and was a little bit evil. So that's where the Temtris name came from. And we took the P out of it because when the guy did the logo up, it didn't look very even. So being a metal band, we're like, hey, we'll just take the P out and make it Temtris. So it's stuck, and it's worked for us. And I've actually had a few other bands go, I wanted to call my band that, and I'm like, too bad, we got it.
And a great logo too.
So it's got that. It's changed a little over the years. It was a bit more spiky and death metal looking when we had the death vocals in the beginning. But it's it's still the same raw Temtris logo really in the end to what it was at the beginning. So just not as spiky and evil looking.
Yeah. And 22 years later, Temtris still doing it. And new music coming, album number 8. When can we expect it? And what can we expect from that album?
Look, this album has been when Temtris release albums, we always come up with a concept. So it may not be a concept album as such, like our last album, Chaos Divine, was a full-blown concept album that had a story written about it and everything as well. But I always have a theme that I write about, and that helps give me the way I want to drive the emotion into the songs and the lyrics. So this album, I wanted to do something about consequences in life and in choices we make. And I think that's a real thing for us, because you can make a decision in life that can totally change your path on how you do things. And they can be good choices or bad choices, and they can give you good outcomes and bad outcomes. So this album was definitely about that, how you can make a decision to make things happen, or you can, make a wrong choice in something or upset someone else that can cause issues down the road. So I wanted that whole, we originally were going to call the album Consequences, and then Killswitch Engaged released an album called The Consequences, and we're like, no, we just wrote our album about that whole topic. So we had to spend some time coming up with a new album name, and we came up with Queen of Crows, and the Queen of Crows is actually the goddess of fate, which summed up pretty much what happens with choices you make in life, and you have to deal with the fate that's delivered. So 8th of August, the beast of the album will be out.
All right.
8th of the 8th of the 8th, which someone mentioned to me tonight, which I didn't even think about until they said it. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool, the 8th of the 8th of the 8th. I'll be able to remember that one easily. Cool. And, yeah, so that will be out on Wormhole Death Records. We will do a couple of singles beforehand as well. So we are going to do a film clip in a few weeks, which I'm very excited about. And tonight I actually just released the artwork, so you'll be able to jump on and have a look at the artwork, and it's getting so much love. I thought it would be liked, but I'm quite shocked at how liked it's been and the response from everyone, which really makes you happy, because we spend a lot of hours on the music and a lot of hours on the art trying to get the concept right so it all talks. So, yeah, exciting stuff, exciting times.
Yeah. August 8th, all right, which will be winter for you, right? Summer for us here in the U.S.
Yeah, just going into winter. That's why it's a good time to go to Europe. Then I can get a little bit of their warm weather.
That's right. Yeah, and speaking of which, you'll be touring in the UK and Europe in August and September around the release of that album, the 8th album on August 8th.
Yes, we'll do a few shows in Australia before we jet off. We'll probably take off right at the beginning of September into Europe. We've got a show in Belgium we're doing at Club Hell. And then we are actually doing a few more shows over that side, and then we're going to go across the ditch and head into UK and play a week in the UK. We'll get back to the lovely Carts and Horses, which is the Iron Maiden pub, which we played last time, and it's just fantastic playing there. So we'll get back to the UK and do a week of shows there, and then we're hopping back over to Europe again, because we've got a few more shows in Germany booked. We've got a couple of shows in Netherlands as well, so I'll have some dates about that soon, but it's all coming together nicely. I'd love to do more. We'd love to get back to Sweden. We'd love to get back to Austria, Switzerland, all those places we played last time. But as you would have heard from other bands, the cost of touring is just becoming incredibly huge at the moment, as is just living in general. So we've had to be a little bit tighter on where we go this time, because we just cannot afford to stick our necks out that far. It costs thousands of dollars just to release an album, let alone tour it. So we'll do the best we can this time and hopefully get back to those other places later.
Any plans to tour the U.S.?
It's always been on our radar, but the recent rise of visas at $5,000 a band member has made things very difficult.
Yeah, back to the cost. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so new album coming on August 8th from Temtris. Back to the music for a second. You said earlier you spent a lot of time working on the music. The songwriting process, is it you and Fox primarily?
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much how we do things. We are welcome for anybody to put input into our songs, the band members. We do not have a problem with that. We love people to give us ideas and contribute. The guys will come down to our studio and add their own parts or pieces in. But it's usually, like I said, if we have a concept which will give us an emotional drive for the songs, and we will write around that depending on how we want things to sound. And this album's going to have a little bit, it's definitely classic heavy metal album with a few emotional tracks in there. We've got the classic power metal track in there, which we love doing, the big vocals and the big choruses and things like that. And we've got quite a dark song in there as well. And that's where, I guess, having those concepts like Consequences, you can write about lots of different topics, which can be good and bad, which gives you so much spectrum to write about, which is exciting.
All right, we're going to wrap up here with Jen from Temtris with 5 questions for Jen.
Mm.
The first album you bought.
First album I bought from memory was Pat Benatar's album, and it was on cassette.
Mm.
And I can't remember what it was called, but she had a great voice. And I've actually got her book because I love her. She's fantastic.
Yes, she's from where I'm from originally, Long Island, New York. Uh,
Awesome.
Dream collaboration.
Oh, dream collaboration. Look, I am a huge Warlock Doro fan.
Doro, yes.
One of my main female inspirations. So, yeah, of course. And there's a little secret in there too that I don't always tell everyone. My mother is Dutch and her last name is Pesh.
Wow.
And I've always wanted to know if Doro's related to my mum or my family. But I've never had the chance to meet her to ask. So, yes, meeting Doro Pesh and having a chat with her would be really cool and do a song with her. And I also am a huge fan of Eric A.K. from Flotsam and Jetsam.
Good one. Yeah.
So I think it would be cool to do a track with him one day. He has that. I love Flotsam's work.
It's funny you mentioned Doro. Doro, when I was a young DJ, she was one of my first interviews, and I'm not going to say when. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, great talent. Do you have any hidden talents?
Well, I'm actually trained in several martial arts and used to teach several martial arts. So I have black belt in a few styles. So if I need to kick someone's butt, I can.
You can, yeah. You kick some serious ass, yes. First concert you went to?
That was actually Iron Maiden Fear of the Dark tour. And I was up the front and we went to that at the Horde Pavilion in Sydney and we drank so much and stayed out all night and partied. I had to call in sick for work the next day.
Do you have a phobia?
Oh, I really do hate spiders. So, and that's not good being in Australia because we get really big huntsmans, they're called, and they're quite often on my car when I go out at nighttime and then I don't want to get out of my car.
The fear of spiders. Jen from Temtris. For more info on Temtris, connect with them online, temptris.com, and they're all over social too. Looking forward to that new album coming out, the 8th album. It's easy to remember. It's coming out on August 8th, and you can catch them on tour in the UK and Europe in August and September too. Jen, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for your time and all the rescheduling. I really appreciate the support. It means a lot to us here in Australia because sometimes it's hard to get heard from way over here. So it's fantastic. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And this is the Metal Queens podcast. I'm Steve Richards. And make sure you hit the subscribe button, too.